Welcome to the Friday 13th YouTube channel, Metalheads. Today we've got another review for you. This is by Omen, a cult classic power metal band from the US. Now, Metal Blade Records are about to release their fourth album, reissued. It's called Escape to Nowhere, and it's coming out on the 26th of January 2024. Check it out, Metalheads. Now, we all know Omen were formed back in 1983 by guitarist and longtime member Kenny Powell. As we all know, Kenny Powell was also in a US band called Savage Grace, who also wrote some fantastic albums. Omen would release a demo, which one of the songs would be featured on the Metal Massacre compilation albums. With the success of this song, the band would soon sign to Metal Blade full-time, and the band would release their debut album in 1984. This was called Battle Cry. Now, this is a cult classic debut album, as we all know. Some of you may know or may not know, I'm a huge Omen fan, as I am with Hellstar. They're one of my two favourite bands from the US that were signed to Metal Blade Records back in the day, alongside Fate's Warning. So the lineup for the cult classic lineup would be J.D. Campbell on vocals. J.G. was a fantastic singer, absolutely fantastic vocal range. Sadly, J.D. passed away later on after leaving Omen. The band also consists of Kenny Powell on guitar, long-time member. Also on bass guitar would have Jody Henry, and on drums, Steve Whitting. Now, the Battle Cry album had some fantastic songs. Would have Death Rider, The Axeman, Dragon's Breath, Battle Cry, the title track. Absolutely fantastic album. Do you want to know what you think of the debut album, folks? In 1985, the band would release their next album. This was called Warning of Danger. Me, personally, this is my all-time favourite album by Omen. Not one bad song. I absolutely think this album's the cult classic of all of them. Some people say Battle Cry, but for me, Warning of Danger. Songs like Warning of Danger was a fantastic song. March On is probably one of my favourite songs on the album. In 1996, the band would release their next album called The Curse. This is a fantastic album, great follow-up to Warning of Danger and Battle Cry. This would consist of 10 songs, some great songs, great artwork for the album cover. Sadly, this would be the last album a band would do with vocalist J.D. Campbell, who sadly left the band. His replacement would be, for the album that we're talking about now, Escape to Nowhere, would be Coben Parr. Now, Coben Parr later on joined Annihilator. Coben would record the Never Neverland album for Annihilator. This was a great album and saw the band supporting Judas Priest on the Painkiller tour. Escape to Nowhere was recorded originally back in 1988. I was very disappointed that J.D. Campbell left the band, and I wasn't sure how the next album would be. Coben Parr is a great singer. Sadly, I didn't think this album had the impact of the first three albums, and I'm pretty sure all you Omen fans out there felt the same way as me. Very disappointing. This album was really laid back, completely different direction, lost all the credibility of the power metal and the melodic hooks. However, Coben did a fantastic job vocally, but the music was very different, very strange, pretty weak in places. And I've tried to listen to this album so many times, and still to this day, I cannot really get into it. Why they went in a different direction, I will never know. However, I did speak to Kenny Powell many years ago, and he said that the original demo versions of this album was a lot rawer and a lot heavier. For some reason, this album got lost in the mix and mastering. This new version of this album consists of 11 songs. 2 of them are bonus tracks. I'm going to tell you the song titles for this album if you've not heard the album. We open up with It's Not Easy, followed by Radar Love, a cult classic song by Nazareth. I don't really think this has done this album justice. I don't know why the band did this cover. Anyway, the album also consists of Escape to Nowhere, the title track, Cry for the Morning, Thorns in Your Flesh, Poisoned, Nomads, King of the Hill, No Way Out, and the bonus tracks are Kill and also Escape to Nowhere 2.0 bonus track. So that's the 2 bonus tracks. This album was also remastered by Bill Matoya and also Kenny Powell, which was done last year in 2023. One of the bonus tracks, King, is an instrumental. Now, I have to say the artwork for this album is pretty good, as you're going to see next to you when I'm talking about this album review. Interesting album cover, the band kept the logo, but like I said, the music didn't really do it for me, and I think a lot of Omen fans would have been disappointed. This, however, does sound good as a remastered album, but I still feel the same way listening to it now as I did back 20, 30 years ago. It still doesn't have the impact of the 3 classic Omen albums. Sadly, the band broke up, only to return back in 1997 when the band would release their next album called Reopening the Gates, released on Massacre Records. This album featured Kenny Powell sung on vocals and guitar. Didn't do too bad for the band, but the band's next album would be called Eternal Black Dawn. This would feature Kevin Koch on vocals. Now, Kevin sounded more like J.D. Campbell. and the music started to sound like early material, and this was back on form. So, Escape to Nowhere. This album kind of reminded me of something that Queen would have done, laid back, very bland indeed in places. I hate to knock this album because Omen are one of my favourite power metal bands, but I just feel like this album let the band down. I also know for a fact if JD Campbell had still been in the band, this album would never been released. It would have been like the first three albums, power metal slap in the face. For some reason, like I said, the band changed direction when Coben Parr joined. Nothing to do with Coben Parr. In places, the album also reminds me a little bit of AC/DC and probably a poor copy of Guns N' Roses. Sorry, guys, I'm really sorry that I have to give this kind of a bad review. I hate doing this, as you know, but I am a massive Omen man fan, like I said. But this is a very much a disappointment album. Great musicians. I'm still glad that Omen is still going and Kenny's playing some old style power metal like he used to. I'm going to give this album 3 out of 5. If you're not too sure about this album, have a listen to the song at the end of this review. I'm going to leave a link for you to check out. Classic Omen albums are fantastic. If you've not heard them, please check them out. You're not going to be able to go wrong with them. Thanks for watching Metalhead. It's a pretty good album. Like I said, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. I hope Omen recording your album in the very near future. Thanks for watching Metalhead. Be safe.